Gosford is a growing city located almost perfectly in between Sydney and Newcastle. It's effectively the capital of the Central Coast. With 350,000 people living in this huge coastal region, this is the 10th biggest city in Australia, bigger than Hobart and Wollongong.
But when you walk its streets, this just doesn't feel true. Gosford is missing something. It's missing life.
My whole childhood I was told, never go to Gosford. It looks like there's been an apocalypse in Gosford and no one told the residents there.
This is the story of why commuter cities are devoid of community. The story of what happens when Sydney says no. The story of a city that has been neglected for decades. This is the story of the struggling city that Sydney forgot.
Before I continue, massive shout out to my monthly Patreon supporters. Please do consider supporting me over on Patreon if you can. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already, and do be sure to check out the rest of Building Beautifully, where I discover Sydney one story at a time.
So today I've got a Gosford local who I'm interviewing for this video. Thank you so much for agreeing to be in this video.
What is this? Get this off my face.
You look a lot better now.
Thank you.
My scaffold of urbanism is comprised of 6 ideals that I previously discussed in my anti-urbanism video, linked in the description. Density. Gosford is home to a large number of apartments, including the locally infamous Twin Towers. On paper, this is great. Apartments need to be built near transit, that's what I always say.
The apartments themselves are really nice. I really like my own apartment, and there's quite a few very luxury ones actually that are starting to pop up. The only thing is that the location of them is not great.
They're spread out over an impractically large area. Many apartments are located more than a 15-minute walk from Gosford Station, forcing residents to drive to the station or take the bus. Where town centres like Chatswood and Meadowbank feel unified, anchored around their respective stations, Gosford feels like a true hodgepodge, scattered and chaotic. Mobility.
Gosford Station is responsible for transporting the residents of this density. Slight problem, trains on the CCN only come every 30 minutes off peak. Not great frequencies. Frequencies are much higher in peak hour though, up to every 10 minutes or so. That's because Gosford train station is quite unashamedly a commuter station that pretty much just exists to get you to work and home. There's not really any major commercial hubs along the CCN line other than Sydney and Newcastle. This is really a line just for commuting. If you want to get to any sort of commercial hubs, you pretty much have to drive.
Buses in the Central Coast are pretty poor. Infrequent, commuter-oriented, and often with roundabout or even completely illegible routes. Like, I'm sorry, what the hell is this? Let's say you live in this apartment near the racecourse and you want to take the 41 bus to the station. Tough luck, it runs just 7 times a day.
How many times have you caught the bus?
Never, but I have heard from my colleagues who do that it can be quite unreliable. Sometimes it can be quite late, so you can't really rely on the buses for things like getting to work.
Services. Unfortunately, this is where Gosford largely collapses. For all its density, Gosford is largely devoid of services.
Well, there's a few shops, a few restaurants, there's an okay variety. Other than the weekly pub trivia at the few pubs in the city, there's not much else to do. As you can see, there's some nice parks, but it's all a little difficult to get to and it's not very well connected. Within Gosford itself, I think the 2 major ones would be the Imperial Centre with the Woolies. There's also a Coles in East Gosford. That's actually pretty much it.
Walk around Gosford's city centre for long enough and you'll find quiet and abandoned shop fronts.
All of these buildings that are just rusted, covered in spider webs and filthy windows, just completely empty. Gosford has a 32% commercial vacancy rate. That is one of the highest in New South Wales, if not the country. My name is Luke Carbonaro. I am one of 2 of the district coordinators supporting the incorporated Gosford Strip precinct.
Oh, Gosford Market Town, or Marketplace, or Gibbleplex. Yeah, they really couldn't stick to one name. This huge shopping centre closed sometime in the 2000s and has been slated for redevelopment ever since. Current plans do admittedly look great, but it's really too little too late. This shopping centre has just sat abandoned for decades, hampering the amenity of Gosford.
But there's only one thing worse than one abandoned shopping centre. Two abandoned shopping centres. The Gateway Centre sits right next to Gosford Station and even has a direct pedestrian walkway into it. It's not literally abandoned, but there's like only 2 stores still open inside of it. It's been like this for years, practically on life support.
It's just so haunting. And there's just like an alarm going off. Do you think it goes off all the time? Was it going off yesterday as well? What the? So they've just shut it off.
Yesterday it was really spooky here because they were playing someone was playing really creepy music.
These escalators right here have been sitting in the parking lot of the Gateway Centre literally since Google Street View began. They've been here for basically 20 years. Obviously you can't really go shopping in Gosford, so if you can't, where does everyone go?
We'll come back to Amy's answer in a bit because it matters a lot more than you might think. Walkability.
I think within the city centre itself, during the daytime, it's fine. Nighttime is not very well lit. You don't feel very safe on the streets. When I tell my colleagues that I'm walking home, they're like, no, don't do that. And the road condition itself is not great either. Often there's footpaths that end in the middle of nowhere. It's overgrown. There's potholes everywhere. I don't think it's super well designed. And I don't think it's very well maintained, given that there's so many apartments here. But even like near the hospital, there's so many streets that just don't have a footpath, and yet I have to walk on them, so I'm walking in the middle of the road.
Gosford is just so car dependent. This is a suburb dominated not by compact, walkable shopping strips, but single lot stores with their own car parks. This urban form is so incompatible with density. Little attempt has been made to achieve harmony here.
Amenity. Gosford's amenity is frankly its strongest suit. There's quite a nice park close to the city centre. It sits on the gorgeous Brisbane water. Unfortunately, Gosford is cut off from Brisbane water by the Central Coast Highway.
For me to get here, I'd have to drive like 5 minutes, and it just doesn't really feel worth the effort most of the time. Same with the park. Honestly, if I was going to drive to the waterfront, I might as well drive an extra 15 to go to the beach, have a swim.
There's empty lots all over Gosford. Buildings have been demolished over the years to make way for new apartments, but many of these developments have simply stalled. This leaves Gosford in a vacuous limbo, giving it a permanent sense of urban decay and a dreadful sense of place. The final tenet is community.
Do you feel like Gosford has a strong sense of community?
Gosford itself, like isolated, I don't get a strong sense of it. I think that kind of stems from a lack of, well, easy to access third places. There's no singular place that after work, me and my colleagues are like, oh yeah, let's hang out here. Something that's really positive though is the trivia is great. Me and my friends actually won the whole thing a few weeks back. I would highly recommend it, and the host is great as well. So I think that is like something to look forward to.
They didn't sponsor us.
But as a whole, I think the Central Coast community is really nice. Everyone's very lovely up here. Check out the Facebook page. There's actually quite a few gems.
Gosford has some of the most passionate, resilient human beings you'll ever meet. People who, against all odds, in one of the country's highest risk of solvency areas, just keep showing up.
More importantly, Gosford is quite unashamedly a commuter city. Despite being located over 80 kilometres from Sydney, despite lacking so much in amenity and services, this is where people are being priced out to.
A lot of people who are living in these apartments in Gosford aren't actually working in Gosford, they're just commuting to Sydney. Out of my 3 other roommates, all of them were commuting to Sydney on a daily basis, just because they were living in Gosford, just because it's cheaper than Sydney.
Mind you, Gosford is still incredibly expensive. Its apartment median is the same as houses on the outskirts of most Australian capital cities. It wouldn't matter so much that people are being priced out here if Gosford actually had a stronger local economy where people can work, but it simply doesn't. Its economy primarily revolves around goods and services, with little devoted to business services, that's white-collar work. Only 36.7% of Central Coast workers have tertiary qualifications. 24.1% of Central Coast residents commuted out of area for work. High-income earners who really should be living in Sydney move to the Central Coast for cheaper property, taking those homes from locals who really need it. Meanwhile, they don't substantially support the local economy because they spend most of their disposable income while they're down in Sydney instead. This is the curse of the commuter city, and it leaves Gosford streets empty at all times of the day. Building up is great. Any housing that is built represents a person, a family not forced to move interstate due to our state's crippling housing crisis. But places need all 6 tenets of urbanism for density to work, and Gosford just doesn't have them. Gosford represents the path of least resistance, a more disadvantaged area with less political clout, with residents who don't possess the time to protest new developments. That's unlike the NIMBYs of privileged areas like Castle Crag, Mossman, Woollahra and Haberfield. Places far closer to Sydney CBD with greater amenity and higher mobility, where all this housing should be going.
I think you put it very well. Gosford is what happens when Sydney says no. Buildings alone don't create a city. We need a coordinated planning activation and a CBD that feels welcoming up that. It's about balance.
This is so unfair. NIMBYs in inner city areas who are trying to protect their property values and their neighbourhood character price people out to Gosford, meaning Gosford residents have no choice but to blow $1 million on an apartment 80 kilometres from Sydney.
This would be a very satisfying place to end the video. If it weren't for NIMBYs, housing would be built in inner city suburbs of Sydney, where units belong, not all the way out here in Gosford. But that's definitely not the whole story. If none of these apartments were here, it's not like it's abandoned shopping centres and High Street would suddenly spring to life now, is it? No. Something else caused all of this. Something else killed Gosford long ago. Obviously, you can't really go shopping in Gosford, so if you can't, where does everyone go?
Erina Fair.
Erina Fair opened in 1987, and it's actually the largest single-level shopping centre in the entire Southern Hemisphere. This shopping centre has Coles, Woolies, JB Hi-Fi, Kmart, Uniqlo, Myer. In fact, there's over 300 stores here. Erina Fair has the services that Gosford is lacking.
Erina Fair is great. We've got everything here. You've got groceries, you've got your shopping. I bought a broom today, which is great. Kmart's amazing.
I just bought a shirt too.
Yeah, there's like
Mysteries.
so many more food options. And in general, there's like just way more people here. It's often quite busy and it's just so much more lively here.
Slight problem. Erina Fair is located 5 kilometres from Gosford, a 10-minute drive or a 20-minute bus ride. There is no train station at Erina Fair. In fact, given Erina Fair opened in the 1980s, public transport was effectively the last consideration.
Parking can suck. Sometimes you just have to circle heaps. Around like this time, like around Christmas time especially, I feel like it's been quite busy.
After its opening, retail naturally gravitated from Gosford towards Erina Fair. Restaurants and services followed. Like a black hole, Erina Fair slowly sucked the life out of Gosford, and soon enough, there was nothing left in Gosford's city centre. To be fair, Erina Fair is great, but because there's no train station, you really can't put apartments there. But you really shouldn't be putting apartments in Gosford either, because there's basically no services there. So instead, you've got the transit and people here, and the services here. A terrible, completely unnecessary disharmony. For what it's worth, Luke's team are adamant that while Erina Fair may have been a big nail in Gosford's coffin, there's no doubt there were many nails.
Through a combination of self-interest, which includes land banking, unrealistic rents, and a decision made for private benefit rather than community benefit, buildings locked up for years with no intention to rent them out, just tax write-offs, basic CBD needs ignored such as parking, lighting, safety, and abandoned buildings. You have 40 years of plans with no real delivery.
While I don't want to slander any current administration or councillors, it would be remiss not to mention that the entire Central Coast Council was suspended in October 2020, and all its councillors sacked 2 years later due to financial mismanagement.
How a local council accrues $500 million in debt, I'm not sure. It's beyond me. With no coherent long-term strategy, revitalisation projects stalled, public infrastructure wasn't maintained, safety and vandalism issues weren't addressed, community and businesses were shut out of decision-making, and Gosford was left without the support of the CBD that needs to thrive. My dad tells me, because he's also a Central Coast local, has been his whole life, he tells me that Gosford used to be this incredible place that he would have to wear his church clothes for. My whole childhood I was told, never go to Gosford. it's not a safe place. You will, it's not worth the visit. That kind of perception still kind of sticks around on the Central Coast. When I tell people that I work in Gosford, they always give me a weird look and say, "Oh, are you sure?"
Additionally, Gosford is unusual because despite being the administrative capital of the Central Coast, it's far from its most desirable area.
We're in Avoca Beach.
Yeah, and as you can see, we just went for a swim. It was
Great. It was kind of what we needed.
Amy, tell us how often you kind of come to the beach.
In summer, honestly, 3 times a week at least. Me and my friends often find ourselves moving or driving out to the coast to places like Terrigal and Avoca for dinner and just to hang out in general. So let's say you finish work, you drive to your house, then you drive to the beach, and then you drive to the shops, and then you drive to the restaurants. It's just all over the place.
The Gold Coast is an apt comparison here. Surfers Paradise is the capital of the Gold Coast, and it has transit, services, and high amenity, being right by the coast. Conversely, everything on the Central Coast is completely detethered. Look, you know things are dire when you're using the Gold Coast as a good example of urban planning. I used to say to Amy, Gosford just needs time to cook. Give it time. But see, Gosford's issues run so deep that it will genuinely take a concerted effort from governments to fix it.
First and foremost, we would be prioritising to lower that vacancy rate as much as we possibly can, especially on the high street. We want businesses to move into these shop fronts so we can bring economic success to Gosford, bring more people into Gosford and create somewhere that people want to regularly be. More green spaces, more cycling access.
The CCN needs to start running 4 trains an hour minimum. Walkability has to be improved with better footpaths. More jobs need to be brought to the Central Coast. Land needs to actually be developed, not just left decaying and forgotten. And someone seriously needs to do something about these escalators, for Christ's sake.
There is more hope and potential and excitement about Gosford right now than there has been in decades. Around 1,300 students are starting at the new University of Newcastle campus. That's going to change Gosford significantly. We are very, very excited for that. Of course, there's the Archibald development. I mean, how could I not talk about those beautiful new twin towers? That is the most investment, the most development that Gosford has seen in in its history. One of the towers is a hotel that is being sold out basically every weekend. And on the other one, you have apartments. Well over 1,000 people have moved in. It's bringing new investment and new personalities and new people. Support the culture makers. They're the scaffolding that holds this city together. Without arts and culture institutions such as Funhouse, such as all of the other fantastic venues that we have around Gosford, really there wouldn't be much reason to visit to Gosford. I'm incredibly proud to be a part of it. We can all see the light at the end of the tunnel, and my God, it's bright.
Gosford is what happens when Sydney says no. A commuter city, a place you're priced out to. But it doesn't have to be. Gosford can't be some backup option. Gosford must be its own city.
I don't know what the future holds for Gosford, but I hope it's bright. Really, I do. There's just so much potential here. Gosford just needs the right vision. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.